In this video, we're going to talk a little bit about stories. Now, this entire course has been designed around this idea of storytelling. I know that I am an English professor, but believe it or not, I don't actually love reading as much as some people think I do. It's not something that I'm so obsessed with, and it is something that I feel is extremely important, but it's not my favorite thing in the world. Writing, also, not my favorite thing in the world. Grammar, punctuation, all of the things you might develop a single story about an English professor for, you might find are changed in me. I'm also a vegetarian who doesn't love vegetables. There's a lot of stuff about me that is a bit of what some might consider a contradiction. But all of this is to say that when I started to become okay with the fact that I still enjoyed my English classes and my writing classes and getting my degrees, and at times very much enjoyed reading and writing, my true passion was storytelling, or stories in general. Just being able to be a part of and understand and think about and connect with a story is something that means so much to me. And I realize in teaching undergraduates, especially in courses that they must take, it's important to allow them to consider that maybe they don't love reading, maybe they don't love writing. And if you do, that's fantastic. But if you don't, consider whether or not you appreciate stories and what stories get to be. We talked about this a little bit earlier, but what makes a story a story? And what is the point of telling stories? A lot. You're going to be exposed to a lot of different opinions on storytelling. But I want you to just take a moment, pause the video if you want to, and think about what you define as a story and how stories have impacted your life, from memories to fiction to movies to songs, and think about how those stories have shaped who you are. There are a lot of different reasons that we tell stories. Oftentimes, we tell stories to communicate something. There is a purpose. But it's not so simple as just telling someone something. A story allows you to communicate in a way that opens up different avenues of your brain and of your heart and of your emotions to get points across in a way that is profound and in a way that hopefully lasts longer than if you were just told specific information. Stories allow us to invest in them. They allow us to feel like we're a part of them. And they inspire us to change the way that we think, consider multiple perspectives, and try to approach conflicts in more meaningful and progressive ways. Stories have been called the most powerful tool of all. And so, in this section of our course, we're going to be thinking about them critically, thinking about them analytically, and also thinking about how we tell stories, how we receive stories, and how stories have shaped our writing and our understanding of writing. There are also 3 YouTube videos. They are different TED Talks that outline the different ways storytelling can be exceptional, scientific, manipulatable, dangerous, and they are highly, highly interesting. The first one is about functional storytelling, and how storytelling is something that can be literally controlled in some ways. When you're watching these videos, all of them, know that you don't have to agree with everything that these speakers are saying, but listen to them with as open of a mind as possible. So the speaker talks about the angel's cocktail and the devil's cocktail, and the way that stories and stimulus create chemical reactions in our brains, and that there is a legitimate science behind storytelling and why storytelling is something that is so powerful and is something that inspires us. Something I want you to think about during this video is a belief in yourself, not only by the way that the speaker is carrying himself and the way that he talks and he delivers his speech, but also about what he is saying about believing in yourself and about needing to have this secure feeling that all humans are born with an inherent ability to tell stories. Some people might even say that's what set us apart from other types of living beings. But think about that as you're watching this video, and think about the way that your neurotransmitters, your scientific elements are reacting and responding in ways that are uncontrollable to you during this kind of storytelling experience. Think about movies that you've watched and the ways that you have gotten so enraptured in memories or documentaries or anything, even a story that your friend has told you that just made you crack up so hard you couldn't even breathe. And think about how writing and storytelling and writing can do a very similar thing if we learn to harness its power and its abilities. And thinking about this video, about this magical science of storytelling, thinking about that critically and deeply and progressively will allow you to consider the way you tell your stories and the way you receive your stories and how you can use stories to whatever purpose you would like to use them. Whether it is to inspire people, whether it is to change their minds, whether it is to communicate or include and involve and uplift people. The next video is a video about storytelling in the digital age. And this one might be of more interest to those of you who are in more of the scientific, data-heavy fields. Maybe you are into coding, or maybe you are analyzing massive data. But this video, the speaker talks about how it's so important as we continue to move deeply into this digital age, into this automated age, to be able to tell and receive stories and digest stories, and to be able to take complicated, complex data and make it relatable to people that might not have the expertise in understanding this. And while the data she's talking about in this video is different than the data we'll be using in our class, think about the process that she uses, the translation process from hard data to this story, to this appealing kind of information, and how you might be able to do the same thing when you go about your writing and your explanations and your sharing of data and complicated ideas that you are the expert on. And lastly, we have a wonderful video about the danger of storytelling. Just like grammar, just like punctuation, there are dangerous elements to dealing with and understanding and receiving and communicating with stories. And particularly what this speaker is talking about is the way that you can get caught up on this idea that there's only one story, or you read a story or understand a story, and how we define story here is something that's complex. It's not just fiction, it's history, it's the stories that people tell you through their body language, it's the stories that the news has fed to you, it's the way that you think about other people, other living things, other cultures, other religions, it's the way that you understand the world. And if you only understand parts of the world, or think you understand parts of experience and existence with one story, then you're doing yourself and the rest of the world a dangerous disservice, because you make assumptions and act on those assumptions and end up stunting progress instead of inviting it. And so that last video about the danger of storytelling is really important. They're all very important. But of course, this one gives you a more serious tone in why and how understanding stories needs to be something that we think about and something that we are aware of. So you've got a lot of content to get through. And while you're doing it, think about that question that I asked at the start of this video and that I've asked in the beginning of this class. What do you consider a story? How do you tell your stories? How do you intake stories from others? How do you process them? What is the purpose of telling a story? And how can we use storytelling to both understand things about writing and communication and then communicate and write while using stories? It's a little bit of a philosophical, abstract concept, but bear with me. Go through the material, read and watch with intention. And if you're still having trouble, please feel free to email your instructor